I get it, you're staring at a list of industrial air dryers and wondering if any of them are actually worth the space, the money, and the time you'll spend installing them. You've probably already heard the horror stories. A dryer that never really gets dry, one that guzzles electricity, or a unit that just adds more maintenance headaches than it solves. That hesitation is exactly why I'm sitting down with you today, because the Ingersoll Rand 42 CFM non-cycling refrigerated dryer, model DA72 INA 100, keeps popping up in forums and on supplier sites, and you deserve a clear picture before you commit. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's talk about the kind of shop or workshop where a dryer like this actually makes sense. If you run a medium-sized operation, think automotive repair, a small CNC shop, or a spray painting booth, you're probably pulling a steady 30-40 CFM of compressed air, and you need that air dry enough to avoid moisture-related problems like rust on painted parts or water hammer in pneumatic tools. In those environments, a non-cycling refrigerated dryer can be a real workhorse because it runs continuously, keeping the moisture content low without the start-stop cycling you'd see in a smaller, on-demand unit. Now, why non-cycling? In a non-cycling dryer, the refrigerant loop is always active, which means the dryer can maintain a consistent dew point even as the demand on the system fluctuates. For a shop that never really shuts down like a 24/7 production line, that consistency can translate into fewer scrap parts and less downtime troubleshooting why a paint job is bubbling. The trade-off, of course, is that the unit draws power all the time, which is where the energy efficiency claim becomes important. Ingersoll Rand has built this model with a focus on energy savings. So while you're paying for constant operation, the internal controls throttle the compressor load based on inlet temperature, preventing wasteful power draw when ambient conditions are mild. Let's walk through a typical day in a shop that decides to install this dryer. The compressor kicks on in the early morning. The dryer is already humming, and the first batch of parts goes through the paint booth within an hour. Because the dryer is already at operating temperature, the moisture level in the air stays below the 5G/M threshold most painters recommend. The result? No rain-on themetal defects, no extra drying time in the oven, and a smoother finish on every panel. Over a week, those incremental quality improvements add up, especially if you're producing a few hundred parts a week. That's where the real value lies, not just in the headline 42 CFM flow, but in the downstream savings on rework and material waste. Who should consider pressing Add to Cart on this unit? If you already have a compressed air system that runs at 2000 psi or higher, and you need a reliable way to keep that air dry for longer tool life and better coating results, this dryer is a solid match. It also makes sense if you've been using a smaller, cycling dryer that can't keep up during peak demand, and you've noticed moisture showing up in your process. Maybe you've started seeing corrosion in pneumatic cylinders or occasional valve failures that you can now trace back to water in the line. The DA72 INA 100's 42 CFM rating comfortably covers those higher flow needs, and its non-cycling design means you won't have to constantly watch for the dryer to catch up after a surge in usage. On the flip side, there are scenarios where you'd be better off skipping this model. If your shop is a hobbyist garage that only runs a few tools a few hours a week, the constant power draw becomes an unnecessary expense. Similarly, if you're already running a large central dryer system that serves multiple areas, adding another 42 CFM unit might be overkill unless you have a specific branch line that needs dedicated drying. Lastly, if you operate in a climate where the ambient temperature rarely drops below 50 F, the refrigeration cycle may never reach its optimal dew point, and a desiccant dryer could actually perform better for you. Let's dig into the practical strengths that matter after you've unboxed the thing. One of the most talked about aspects of Ingersoll Rand products is their environmental sustainability angle. This dryer is built to meet strict energy efficiency standards, meaning it uses less electricity per pound of moisture removed compared with older designs. For a shop that's already tracking utility costs, that can shave a noticeable amount off the monthly bill, especially during the hot summer months when the dryer has to work harder. Another strength is reliability. Ingersoll Rand has a reputation for rugged components that hold up under continuous operation, and this model complies with safety standards that protect both the equipment and the operators. The safety compliance includes built-in pressure relief valves and temperature monitoring, which reduces the risk of a catastrophic failure that could halt production. No product is without its hidden trade-offs, though. Because it's a non-cycling unit, you'll see a constant hum, and the heat exchangers can get warm to the touch after a few hours of operation. That is an A.